again, we will start with again trying to generate a good intention motivations. First, starting with watching the breath for a few moments. Then we can generate a good intention by thinking, may us coming here together and engage in discussions become cause and conditions to cultivate and fully develop our wisdom, realizing the emptiness, as well as the bodhicitta mind. May it become cause and condition to obtain our highest potential, fully awakened state, so we can be most greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient being. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of God and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three, ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms in all aspects, with a supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of Buddha, a star, a visual apprehension, a flame of lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, and bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see condition, things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four false, and be delivered from samsaric oceans, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. I prostrate to the archetypal gem, thus did I hear one time. The Bhagwan was dwelling on the mass of vultures mountain in Rajgriha, together with great community of monks and great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagwan was observed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena for profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregate also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, how should any son of the lineage train who wish to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wish to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this correctly and repeatedly, beholding those five aggregate also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness not other than form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factor, and consciousness are empty. Buddha, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Buddha, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factor, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no order, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomena. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Buddha, therefore, because there is no attainment, both Bodhisattva rely on dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond ego, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to the unsurprisable, perfect, complete enlightenment in the reliance on perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurprised mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth since it's not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared that Om Gadegat Parak Parasamgata Bodhi Soha. Buddha, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in a profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from the concentration and commented the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, one should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagata rejoiced. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharititi Putra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in the entirety, alone with the world of God, humans, Asura, and Gandharvas were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Sashibhege chonshime to tarira lengshe yinde jembade sangye shindu mide uwai dogun namada shinla cheba sho yedam kururana mandala niyatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodan soge sonam la chanchu padu daneke. Dage choshe gibe sonam ge dola penche sangye dubash. Sangye chodan soge sonam la chanchu padu daneke. Dage choshe gibe sonam ge dola penche sangye dubash. Last week we kind of ended where there was a discussions about the sudden certain practitioner due to misunderstanding of the passage from some of the sutras and so forth, where they says and believe that we don't need to study, we don't need to use reasoning logic that require thoughts, because ultimately we need to achieve non-dualistic, non-conceptual state of mind. And so if we use conceptions and dualist conception through kind of reasoning logic, then it doesn't, it cannot lead to non-conceptual and non-dualistic state of mind. And then, refuting that Lama Tsongkhapa refute that misunderstanding, and then he says the importance of reasoning and logic to have the understanding of emptiness through at the very beginning, we need the conceptual thoughts through reasoning and logic to be able to reach non-conceptual, non-dualistic point. And then with the different examples and from different scriptural quotations, sources, and also ton of reasonings, so then because if you say, the cause is, how can something that is conceptual can lead to non-conceptual, and to that, and then Lama Tsongkhapa come with some other argument as well, even though they are not same, but sentient beings who are unenlightened can become enlightened, Buddha, and then, our contaminated actions lead to non-contaminated actions, At the very beginning, as ordinary beings, we have our actions contaminated. But with that contaminated action, we train, and then it can transform into non-contaminated. So contaminated can lead to non-contaminated. Unenlightened sentient beings can become enlightened sentient beings, and so forth. And therefore, conceptual thoughts can lead to non-conceptual thoughts in the end, and so the needs of that at the very beginning. So I think that was the, in terms of the pages, with the iPad, not a PDF, is 282. We are in 282, page number 282, from the very beginning of that, in the D, so again, there is the essays from that in the essay on the mind of enlightenment, there seems to be some, again, if you take the passage literally, then it can be misunderstood, and so where they say when conceptualizations appear, how could there be emptiness? So in that cases, if you do it technically, then if you have conceptualization, then you cannot have a realization of emptiness. How can there be emptiness? How can you have realization of emptiness? Direct realization of emptiness, if you take literally. So that it seems to indicate that Tathagata don't perceive the mind with aspect of examer or object of exam. And so again, if you take that, also that line, literally, it seems to indicate, the Buddha does not perceive the subject, the examiner, and the object that is being examined. It seems to indicate that Buddha doesn't perceive that those two, the subject and object, the object that is being examined and the subject that is examining the objects. Also, again, if you take literally, it seems to. So there are so many passages, statements like that in many of the teachings that you can't take it literally. And sometimes when you literally, then that is where the misunderstanding come. And so again, even this passage seems to say, where those agent and object exist, enlightenment does not exist. So that is, again, the moment you have this, if you have the perceptions of subject and objects as two, with that kind of some conceptual view or dualistic view, then you cannot achieve enlightenment. One cannot achieve enlightenment. So again, that is what it seems to indicate. And so, this is, so these are like some of those statements are like those who proclaim reasoning, logic, conceptual is, obstacle to enlightenment. So they use this kind of course, many other different passages and line, but also here. And so, but then you have to understand what is the really meaning of that. And so here Lama Tsongkhapa point out, what it means is you perceive the subject that is examining an object that has been examined as truly existence, then you will not achieve enlightenment. If you perceive them truly existent, then you cannot achieve enlightenment. It doesn't mean if you perceive as subject, object as object, that you cannot achieve enlightenment. It doesn't mean that. But what it means is if you perceive the subjects as inherently existing subjects, the objects as inherently existing objects, then you cannot achieve enlightenment, because you still have that grasping of inherently existing, the ignorance that's grasping inherently existence. So therefore, one cannot achieve enlightenment. That is what it means by when those agent and object exist, enlightenment does not exist. That's the meaning of that lines. And again, here is saying that this statement is not refuting the wisdom that is analyzing the subject, the wisdom that is analyzing the object, and the object that is being analyzed is not refuting that, but is refuting inherently existing wisdom that is examining and inherently existing object that has been examined. Such, if such statements is refuting the individual analysis done by the object, by the subject, the wisdom, then it contradicts many other statements from the Buddha's own words in many of the sutras. And there can't be contradictions. Buddha cannot have contradictions. So if you take those literally, then there will be so much contradictions that you find within the so many sutras, and so therefore, or within the many of the writing of the great master like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirtis, and all of their writings, there will be true contradiction to all of their writing as well, because if we study all the Nagarjuna's writing, all the Nagarjuna's writing, he has wrote so many great, so many texts, scriptures, commentaries, and then all other great Indian masters that follow him from those traditions, whether it's Chandrakirti, whether it's Buddha Palita, whether it's Arya Deva, whether it's Shandideva, whether it's Bhava Vika, whether it's Asanka, they all wrote so much writing, and all of those writing, if you study that, they all are analysis. They all are analysis, analyzing the ultimate nature of the phenomena, self and phenomena, with many different reasoning and so many different reasoning and logic. That is most of their writing are on that. So if such analysis is not required and it is obstacle to the enlightenment, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Why would they spend so much time writing on that? Why would they want people to study that if that is obstacle to enlightenment? Because they are writing that to help to achieve enlightenment, not to create obstacle to enlightenment. Either you have to say they are wrong, they are completely wrong, mistaken, or if you accept them as something, great practitioners who achieve high level of realizations, then that is how they achieve enlightenment. And many of those who negate or refute, that analysis is not needed and analysis is obstacle to enlightenment. Those masters and practitioners, they say they followed Nagarjuna. They say they follow their Nagarjuna view. But if you are following Nagarjuna view, then you have to follow what he has written in all his writings. That is the only way that you can know what his view is. And so therefore, that is, and even in Sutra, all the among the Buddha's sutra, that collections, that has been translated in Tibetan, more than 100 volumes, okay? And supposedly there are more which haven't been able to translate in everything in Tibetan. But just the volume that has been translated in Tibetan, there is more than 100 volumes. Among them, most volume is on personal paramita, the perfection of wisdom. There are 100 verses, which has 12 volumes, then 20,000 verses, which is 3 volumes, and then 8,000 verses, 1 volume, and then there are many other also, small, like Dhammapada Sutra, Heart Sutra, and many other small, which are and all of them, if you read them, if you study them, they are analyzing. All of them are analyzing the reality. Why would also Buddha spend so much time analyzing the reality if that is an obstacle to enlightenment? So therefore here, as the author says, it contradicts all those Buddha's teachings and all those great Indian masters' writings, teachings, and so therefore, and so it is again similar, again in the same text, in the essay on the mind of enlightenment, again there is another similar kind of thing, meditating on emptiness, called non-productions, emptiness, sadness, are inferior nature. It's not to meditate on, So again, here is saying, Lama Tsongkhapa says, again, if you kind of take it literally, it seems to indicate almost as though it's imputing the meditation on selflessness, But again, here is not refuting the meditation on selflessness, but is refuting meditating on emptiness by seeing emptiness as inherent existence. Okay. When you try to meditate by seeing emptiness, the emptiness to whom you are meditating, the object of your meditation, emptiness, okay? And if you try to meditate on emptiness by seeing emptiness as inherently existent, truly existent, then that is inferior meditation, because that does not act as a direct antidote to the fundamental ignorance and the delusions. And such meditations is being refuted, but not the meditation on emptiness itself is being refuted. So that is what Lama Tsongkhapa clarify again, explain the meaning of that word, clear a little bit of that, And again, same thing in the Praise to Transcendental 1, again, it says, when you teach nectar of emptiness, so giving the emptiness as like the nectar, that can heal and all the suffering and cause of the suffering through the understanding of emptiness, and to clear all the conceptual thinking. So you give the teaching on emptiness. So by cultivating the wisdom relies on emptiness, through that one can clear and one can overcome all the conceptual thinkings. Whoever adhere to it is very much reproved by you. What does a reprove means?
I think it means sort of rebuked or criticized.
Yeah. Okay. And in the same way, it also praises Kalin Nagarjuna. According to this, selfness are not as they should correctly observable. The view of selfness were therefore rejected by the Buddha. Again, if you take all this literally, again, it seems to say, Buddha is, reject the view of either self and selflessness, because when you think of selflessness, then it seems like is dualistic. Okay, dualistic. Do you get it? So again, it is the same argument, the moment you make this distinguishing self and selflessness, then it is dualistic, is conceptual, and therefore such is rejected by the Buddha, So again, if you take literally, it seems to indicate that, but again, it's the same meaning, if you, the view that of grasping inherently existing self and inherently existing selflessness is rejected by the Buddha, it is refuted by the Buddha, okay? Not, Buddha didn't refute or rejected the self and selfness, the concept, the view of self and selfness, but because Buddha did explain the concept of, or the view of selflessness, how can he refute that? How can he reject that? It is a contradiction. If you see all his writing, in all the sutras, as I explained, in Perfection of Wisdom, Buddha is explaining the selflessness. If he's expressing selflessness, how can he refute or reject that? But here it seems to indicate that. And so what it means is, Buddha refute or reject inherently existing selflessness. That is what it means. Do you get it? Okay, so that is again. So you see that kind of statement, so much similar statement in many of those sutra and commentaries, Nagarjunas and others, time to time. But all of them, you have to understand the real meaning of that. You can't take them literally. Otherwise, you will have too much contradictions. Otherwise, you will have too much contradiction, then your mind would explode, don't know what to make it of it. One time, sometimes he said it is selflessness, and another time you say, there is no selflessness, what does that mean, So you can't make, is Buddha crazy? Is Nagarjuna crazy? He's keep on saying sometimes there is selflessness, sometimes he's saying there's no selflessness. If you hold selflessness, view of selflessness, then you cannot achieve enlightenment. If you, all of that, So we have to distinguish, and so therefore, again, what it shows is the importance of studying, again. Because if you don't study, then you will take it literally. If you don't study, then you will take it literally. And if you like literally, then you will find so much contradictions among the Buddha's own words, so much contradiction among the Nagarjuna's own word, and then you wouldn't be able to make come to any kind of understanding conclusion, what they really means, what is their real thoughts, because you find too much contradictions. And so, but if you study, then you will know, even though literally that is not the meaning of that. So you have to see, and then there is no contradictions. And again, similarly, there two different, perfection of wisdom. Again, there are similar kind of statements. Here, one statement: all the Bodhisattva thinks the aggregate is empty, employing sign, he will distrust the basis of non-productions. So again, again, it seems to the moment you have this sign or the view that aggregate is empty, then the Bodhisattva is distrusting the basis for non-productions or enlightenment. But again, here, what it means is, same thing, same explaining, already Lama Tsongkhapa explained. If you hold, the aggregate to be empty is inherent existence, then you are having the sign, and that kind of sign. If you have that kind of employ that kind of sign, then again, that is distrusting the basic projections. Then when using what is called empty and selflessness form, you use signs, and if you use the sign, one does not use the perfection of wisdom. So again, here it seems to indicate, if you take literally, if you use such kind of sign, reasoning, logic, then it means that you are not using the perfection of wisdom, and therefore such sign should be rejected or negated, it seems to indicate, because we want to develop the perfection of wisdom. And if you want to develop perfection of wisdom, then you have to get rid of such signs. Okay? That is literally what seems to passage. If you take it too literally, that is what it seems to indicate. But again, that is not the real meaning of that. The real meaning of that, again, is the same thing, So here Lama Tsongkhapa said, refer to that meaning of those statements, refer to everything, emptiness and so forth by truly existence. So already explained before, in order to overcome the delusions and the ignorance, we try to have understanding of emptiness. And the emptiness is the solution to the problem. Emptiness is solution to the problem, okay? If you understand emptiness, you achieve enlightenment. If you misunderstand emptiness, or if you don't understand emptiness, then you are in samsara. So the solution is the emptiness, okay? The realization of the emptiness. But when you grasp emptiness to be inherent existence, then that doesn't become solution, it becomes problem. Do you get it? So then, it instead of becoming, when you started to grasp the emptiness for truly existence, then it cannot give rise to the perfection of wisdom, and thereby it cannot lead you to enlightenment, and therefore it become, not only it doesn't lead, but it become obstacles to develop perfection of wisdom. It become obstacle to achieve enlightenment. And so that is the point here being making, So again, here it is say, from that passage where they say, Bodhisattva, he here referring Bodhisattva, he distrusts the basis of non-productions, distrust or not having faith, the basis of non-production to the emptiness, would be also unreasonable. For to have trust in it would also be employing sign. If you read the logic, then, having a trust is also, when you have faith in something, that is also a sign, when you have faith in the non-production, the emptiness, having a faith, trust in something, is also a sign, also a sign. And so therefore, if you say sign, any kind of sign has to be refuted, then also faith had to be refuted and rejected. But faith is needed in our practice, okay? But faith is sign. So basically what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying here is not rejecting all the sign, but is rejecting particular sign that is inherently existing. That particular sign is not rejecting all sign. If it's rejecting all sign, then that would mean rejecting the faith as well. Trust or the faith is as well, because the faith or trust is also sign, is a conceptual sign. Faith is a conceptual thoughts or feelings, whatever. And so in the same sutra, how you cannot take that literally. If you take literally, then you have a contradictions. Not only contradiction among different sutra, but within the same sutra, there is a contradictions. Because in that sutra, it says, who perfectly knows the phenomena like inherent existence, such employ the supreme perfection of wisdom, So anyone who relies, the phenomena to be empty of inherent existence, such person employ or cultivate the supreme perfection of wisdom, So here is, so this one and the previous one, when using what is called empty and selfless form, one use sign, one does not use the perfection of wisdom. You see the contradiction between that two statements? Here, the previous one saying you are not using perfection of wisdom if you do that. Here it says if you do that, then you are employing the supreme perfection of wisdom. Do you say it? If you take it literally, it seems completely contradictions in that two statements in same sutta. So therefore, it can't be contradictions. And therefore, the meaning of the first one is inherent existence when you hold emptiness to be inherent existence. So that is where, and same thing in next one, when uncompounded, compounded. So, the concept of compounded or uncompounded. So then again, they become dualistic, black and white phenomena, again, kind of dualistic view, are shattered by the wisdom, not even thus remain to be seen, In the world, this is counted as the perfections of wisdom. So, such whether it's compounded, uncompounded, black phenomena, when you analyze each of those objects, whether they exist from its own side or whether they exist inherently existing, then through that analysis, you find none of them exist inherently, even from the tiniest particular things. And when you find that, when you understand that, and through that understanding, perfection of wisdom, then you shatter all the afflictive emotions and all the delusions and the cause of all the delusions. And so that is, and also King of Sutra, if phenomena examine as selflessness, and once exam are meditated on, that is the cause of attainment to the fruit nirvana. Through other cause, you can't find peace. Again, here, it explains emptiness need to be examined, analyzed. Do you get it? It doesn't reject analyzing. Because that was the point the other was making. Analyzing is obstacles. So again, from the sutra point of view, again here, because they are using some statement from the sutras to prove that point. But then here, Je Tsongkhapa is saying, if you look here, the Buddha's actually is saying that when you examine and analyze selflessness, and once you have examined that and once you have find there are non-inherent existence of selflessness, then you meditate on that selflessness. Having meditated on that selflessness, then you achieve the nirvana, liberations. And there is no other way to achieve liberation than through having that meditating on that emptiness, that you come to conclusions or understanding through the analysis or examinations. So analyzing is not obstacle to enlightenment, but it is the cause to enlightenment. It is the examining, the selflessness is the one that lead to enlightenment, is not the obstacle to enlightenment. So that is the point that is trying to make here for those misunderstood, And same in, Heart Sutra, it's the same thing, How should Bodhisattva who wish to engage in profound perfection of wisdom? Then the answer is he should truly and correctly view even those five aggregates are empty in their own nature. So again, here it says, those who want to achieve enlightenment, then you should truly and correctly view the five aggregates and all phenomena as empty of its own nature. So therefore, viewing is not obstacle to enlightenment. Because again, you see in the past, they use that the view is the sign and it is obstacle to enlightenment. If you have the view, you cannot achieve enlightenment. So again, here it says you need to view the five aggregates as empty of truly existence. Through viewing them as empty of truly existence, then you can achieve enlightenment. So that is the again point, because we saw in other statements, where it seems to indicate if you have view of selflessness, then that is obstacle to enlightenment, or you cannot achieve enlightenment if you have that view, so that is where. So here, there are so many statements like that which would otherwise be contradicted, there will be too much contradictions within Buddha's own sutras, within Nagarjuna's own writings, within Chandrakiri's own writing, and so forth. And then, as I mentioned before, then, whether they should be kind of, confused, unenlightened. If they are making a contradictory statement again and again all the time, either they should be confused themselves, unenlightened themselves, or if they are not confused and they are enlightened, then there shouldn't be any contradictions, And so therefore, if there is no contradiction, even though it seems like contradictions when you take it literally, but when you really understand meaning of those statements, passage, then there's no contradictions, because that is not the meaning of what it seems from the literally, so that is important. And so also in the Nagarjuna prays to spirit of the reality, same thing, the Dharma supremely cleans the mind is the lack of inherent existence, So the wisdom, the wisdom or the Dharma that realizes the emptiness is the one that supremely cleans the mind, cleans the minds from all the afflictive emotion, all the obscurations, as long as one apprehend my I and mine, one impute expect from the without. So, as long as we apprehend, inherently existing me or I, then that is where it leads us to samsara. On the other hand, when two aspects of non-self, non-self of I, non-self of others are seen, the seed of existence cease to be. Then that is when we cut the very root of the samsara, So by grasping and apprehending inherently existing I and inherently existing mind, we kind of get tied up in the samsara. By imputing that by our mind, superimposing inherent existence to that object, then we get tied up in the samsara. On the other hand, when we see the selflessness of I and the others, the phenomena, then it sees or cut the very root of existence of the samsara. It's same mean in Chandrakiri's, coming to the middle way. Therefore, by viewing, again, same thing, viewing self and the mind as empty, the yogi will be completely liberated. So all these, so many different because, those who says that you don't need analysis and analysis obstacles, they try to rely on some of those passages and statement from the Sutra and Nagarjuna's others. And so here is proving, if that is the case, then also what about those passages here that Je Tsongkhapa, what about all these passages, all about all these statements from the Sutra and that, and so that is the way the points is being made. And so you should understand this in according with those statements, what it means, individual different statements, individual different passage. You have to understand meaning of it individually, different passages within the different contexts of those passages and statements. And then maintain the continuity of asserting selflessness and absence of inherent existence. And then, through that analysis, we try to have a understanding of emptiness. And once we have understanding of emptiness, then we try to maintain that understanding, that realizations or that state of meditations continuously, So first you use reasoning logic to come to ascertain something. Do you get it? So use reasoning logic and then come to ascertain that is not truly existing or inherent existence. Once you have that come to that understanding or ascertainment that is not truly existing, inherent existing, then you try to maintain that continuity of a certain selflessness without analyzing. So as we mentioned, analyze and non-analyzing. You analyze, you come to certain conclusions, certain assertment, and then you try to remain in that state of understanding without much analysis, placement, meditation. So that is what we try to do. So again, I think maybe, I don't know whether we need to read also same, the stages of meditation by Kamala Shila in stage of meditation 1. Again, he seems to make very clear, that some of the passage from the sutras of Dharaniya non-conceptions, the meaning of that, where it says sign of form and so forth abandoned by not attending to them, so sometime, non-meditating is the best meditations. Do you get it? Sometimes you see certain statement like that, non-meditating is the best supreme meditations, like that, So similarly, the signs of form and so forth, those conceptual are abandoned by not attending to them, not paying attention to them, not having the thoughts on them. So literally, it seems then the meaning of that, then, Kamala Shila is saying, this implies that one does not attend to whatever is not observed of examination. It doesn't mean that you don't pay attentions, thereby you don't do the examination by your wisdom to the objects. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that, it does not imply mere absence of attentions, So basically, so here, Kamala Shila is saying, just not paying attention and not having thoughts, just not by stopping all your thoughts. Basically, what it means saying, not having attention, meaning not having any thoughts. Just by stopping all the thoughts, emptying your thoughts, does not lead to enlightenment. Basically, that is what it's saying. That is what it's meaning. Just by emptying your thought, not having any attentions, thereby, towards any objects, thereby emptying any thoughts, is not going to lead to enlightenment. So that is because that is one of the, like such as the Hashang, one of the Hashang's view is that, and there are many practitioners who follow similarly like Hashang's view, is that you stop having all the thoughts, all the attentions, all the concepts, all the thoughts, and by doing that, then you achieve enlightenment. And so Kamala Shila kind of negated that clearly here in that, in his writing. So here, the meaning of that here, Je Tsongkhapa says, add the intended meaning. So then what the meaning of that is in that sutra, when he said form are abandoned by not attending to them. What does that mean? Not attending to them. What that means, at the intended meaning set forth, is that you correctly examine with analytical wisdom to the objects, whether it's the self or other phenomena, and then establish meditative equipoise on the meaning of your realization that not even a particle of referent object apprehension truly exists in the observed. So what it means is, first you do analysis to the objects, whether it's self or phenomena. And through that analysis, then you come to understanding there is no inherent existing self or phenomena. And once you have that understanding or realization, then you try to remain in that meditation, in meditative equipoise, without any other thoughts, okay? And that is what it means, that through such meditations, then you can abandon all the signs of inherent, of all the other conceptual thoughts or delusions, afflictive emotions, all of that. So here, the meaning of not attending to them, that is where the key point here. Not attending to the mind doesn't mean emptying your mind. It doesn't mean emptying your mind. It doesn't mean emptying your thoughts and not having any attentions. It doesn't mean that. But instead, what it means, first you do analytical meditations with analytical wisdom and come to that understanding of non-inherent existence. Once you have that understanding of non-inherent existence, a certainty of that, then you try to meditate on that without any other thoughts in the meditative equipoise. By through that, then you can overcome or abandon all these signs. So that is what the meaning of that. Again, so also in the again, Kamaleshila stage of meditation 2, again there is a following statements. Again, quoting from the sutras, when you search with the mind, what the mind is, you realize it's empty, and then you truly search the mind, realizing that. Then you try to analyze what the nature of the mind that is realizing the emptiness itself. First you analyze the object, whether it's the self or whether it's the phenomena. And once you find it is empty or truly existing, then you do analysis to the subject, that the mind that is realizing that emptiness. What is its nature, entity? And you realize also that mind is also empty of truly existing. Even not only the object, but the subject itself is empty of truly existing. And through such realization, you enter the yoga of signlessness, And so in that statement, what it shows is, through analysis, using the sign, by using the sign analysis, it lead to signless. Do you get it? So point that we already made before, that through conceptually, it lead to non-conceptual. From dualistic point of view, it leads to non-dualistic. By using sign at the very beginning, then it leads to signless state. Okay, so that is what is point, is that the needs of those at the very beginning. And so that is the statement from Sutra. Then the Kamalashila himself, this indicate the proprietary reflections is the entrance to the signless. Okay, reflections, contemplating, analyzing at the very beginning is the gateway or entrance to the signless state. So therefore, we cannot reject the analyze and using the sign through reason and logic at the very beginning in order to reach signless point. but instead is needed, is the gateway, is the entrance to that. It very clearly indicates that it's impossible to enter into the complete non-conceptual by merely abandoning mental attention altogether without analyzing the entity of the things by the means of wisdom. So it's, so here Kamala Shila is refuting the wrong view of the Hashang, Hashang view, where Hashang said you don't need to analyze with the wisdom, you don't need to analyze, you just need to clear all the thoughts to achieve enlightenment. And so that has been clear. And again, it's the same thing in the clouds of the Julep Sutta. It says same thing. If you have not found the view of suchness or emptiness through correct period analysis, you have to do at the very beginning analysis. If you do not that, will not be able to engage in the meaning of suchness non-conceptually. Okay. So again, very clearly indicated, very clearly said that, in that sutras, the needs of analysis at the very beginning, the needs of conceptuality at the very beginning, in order to reach non-conceptual state, in order to need sign at the very beginning, in order to reach signless state, in order to reach non-duality state. And so, and again, Kamala Shila in the stage of meditation 3, again, he clearly refuted that again, because sometimes emptiness is explained as inconceivable, beyond the mind, inexpressible. Do you get it? You find that kind of expressions often in the sutras, the expressions of emptiness as being, inconceivable by the concept of the thought, beyond the mind concept, cannot be expressed. And then again, on the basis of such statements, but then they say, you cannot be, the emptiness cannot be understood by using reason, logic, and concepts. So therefore, reasoning, logic, and concept is an obstacle to have that kind of direct realization of emptiness, and therefore shouldn't. And so therefore, again, here, Kamala Shilas and explaining what the meaning of that, non-expressible by the word means, empty can be expressed by the words, but it cannot be expressed exactly the way Arya experienced directly. Okay. So it doesn't mean emptiness cannot be expressed. Okay. Empty can be expressed by words, but how the Arya experience directly, their experience cannot be expressed fully in words. Also, the way the Arya beings experience the emptiness directly, that cannot be experienced by a concept. With a concept, you can experience emptiness, but the way you experience the emptiness is not same as that is experienced directly by the Arya beings. And so that is the meaning of that. It doesn't mean the emptiness cannot be expressed by word. It is not object of the concept, or cannot be conceived by the thought or conception of thought. It doesn't mean that. So that is where clearly, and so then Lama Tsongkhapa make that clear in that. Then maybe we can try to, and not also now having gone through the sutra sources and Indian master sources to refute that such a misunderstanding. Then now, not only that, even the Kadamba masters also have similar views. So, so here, Potowa, one of the Adishas, one of the Adisha's main disciples, one of the main Adisha's main disciples in his jewel box, it is clearly, when you hear and think or reflect, through reasoning, some says you determine that there is no inherent existence. But when you meditate, cultivate non-thought. So sometimes there are some misunderstanding and some mispresentation. They say, first you need to study in order to determine non-truly existent. You need to study, you need to think or reflect on, you need to study and you need to reflect. You hear or study and reflect on by using reason in order to determine non-truly existing of the objects. But when you meditate, you shouldn't use reasoning and logic. Do you get it? You use that only when you are studying and reflecting and determine that. But when you are actually meditating, you shouldn't be using reason and logic, but you should meditate without any thoughts. So some says that and some do that, and so that is saying is incorrect. That way of is incorrect. So therefore, that is the next one. He comes here. If you do that, okay, when you meditate, if you don't use thoughts through reasoning and logic, if you do that, this emptiness, unconnected, what you study, when you reflect and when you meditate is unconnected, is unconnected. When you study, when you reflect, you use reasoning and logic. But now when you meditate, you don't use reasoning and logic. So it is what you are studying, reflecting, what you are meditating is unconnected. Okay? And because of that, unconnected, so what you study, what you reflect, and what you meditate, cultivate apart. By doing that, will not serve as an antidote. If you do that, then it will not serve as an antidote to overcome the afflictive emotions and delusions. Thus, even at the time of meditation, examine what you have familiar with. So therefore, even during the meditations, you use same analysis, examination, using reason and logic, what you learn during when you are studying and reflecting. You do same when you are studying and reflecting. When you are studying and reflecting, you do examinations, analysis through reason and logic. Also, when you meditate, you also bring that and you also do that same thing. So that is where it is. And the reason and logic, one of the reason logic here, he says, not one or many. So that was one of the reason logic we already discussed before, whether the object is one with its parts or whether it is separate or many from the basis or for the parts. So that is one. Or interdependence, or that using the reasoning logic that is not truly existent because it's interdependent, because it's dependent arisings. Okay, so that and so forth. So other reasoning that we discuss. Like the four type of four way of reasoning, 7 way of reasoning, all different those reasonings. Also abide a bit in non-conceptual. So that is again same thing. Integrating analytical meditation and placement meditations. First, you use reasoning logic to come to the ascertainment and understanding. So you use reasoning logic. So when you use reasoning logic, is conceptual. So once you come to realization is non-truly existing, non-inherent existing, then you try to remain bit for a little bit without any other thoughts, without any examinations, without any analysis, without any conceptual. And I think we already discussed that before as well. But again, sometimes it is helpful to see the sources. of those practices from earlier masters, earlier teachings, going back to much, much earlier of some of those practices. Even though we already discussed that, but then sometimes we wonder, how authentic those teachings are. And so when we find, such practice resources, authentic sources from the earlier master, then it helps us to feel more, have more trust, confidence in such practices. So, here again, it says, if you meditate like that, then you will cure the afflictions. So if you meditate like that, with using reason and logic, and then trying to meditate with non-conceptual, once you come to ascendant like that, then you will be able to overcome, cure, or relief of afflicted emotions, which are the source of the samsara sufferings. Those who wish to follow the divine ones, so I don't know whether this divine one, where it referred, whether it is the Buddha or Nagarjuna or Atisha, I'm not so sure, and wish to practice system of perfections. Oh, I think divine one is referring to Lama Adisha, because sometimes Lama Adisha is known Hlachik Dibamkara. In Tibetan, Hlachik Dibamkara, sometimes we call, so his name is Dibamkara, and Hla is kind of like the divine or holy beings, or godly beings, So here, translator said divine. So here, I think it's referring, because Tibetan translation Hlachik, and sometimes Lama Adisha Hlachik Dibamkara, that is. And so it's referring to those who wish to follow divine ones, so that means the Adisha, and wish to practice system of perfections, the Sudrayana, who want to practice the Sudrayana. And that is their method for cultivating wisdom. And I think here, the extinguishing, it might be interesting where here Poto was saying, those who want to follow the system of perfections or Sutrayana, because you remember also Lama Tsongkhapa making in Tantrayana at a high level of completion stages, there's a different way of meditating it. When you have reached a high level in completion stages, in highest yogatana completion stages, then there is a meditation actually without using the analysis to develop the special insight, which Lama Tsongkhapa mentioned. She's not going in detail here, but there is but that kind of practice is only in very higher practice, higher that. And so I think maybe here also, maybe that is where making system of perfections, this is the way to develop wisdom, and doesn't explain a system of perfection and system of tantra, because in tantra there is in certain practice, in certain particular points of practice, then there is a slightly different way too. So that is familiarized with acceptance of persons, and they should engage in it accordingly. The elderly also said, the elder also means, I think it's a Domdemba or Adisha. Yeah, Adisha. Well, through the whom emptiness relies, so through whom foretold by the Tathagata, who saw the reality that it was true, according to Nagarjuna and Nagarjuna's student Chandrakirti, through oral instruction transmitted from them, the truly reality will be realized. So if we have to use analysis and reasoning and logic to have a realization of emptiness, because there are so many different presentations of emptiness, by different great earlier Indian masters. So too, with whom we should follow, the presentations of Madhyamika, one of Nagarjuna's disciple, Baba Bika, his presentations and the presentation of Chandrakirti is different. Okay. Baba Viga present the emptiness according to Sotantrika Madhyamika. Chandrakita present emptiness according to Prasangika point of view. So there is different view of point of how they are presented. And then Asanga presentation of emptiness is very different. His presentation of emptiness is according to the Mind Holy School. And then there are other masters whose presentation of emptiness is according to, Sutrayana, Sutadarka and Baba, the school of Sutra and the school of great expositions. So because there are so many different presentations by different masters, whom should we follow? And so here is saying, we should follow the Nagarjuna, and within the Nagarjuna's view, the explained by the Chandrakirti. That view is the most subtle and most unmistaken and most subtle presentation of emptiness. And so we should follow that. So that's and here Lama Tsongkhapa making a little bit here, point. Thus, these instructions set forth by Adisha in his Madhyamika instructions and Master Kamalashila intention here appear to be similar, are amplified here. So what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, the presentation of Kamalashila and Adisha is not exactly same, okay, in general. Adisha's view is according to Prasangika view. Kamalashila's view is according to Sotandrika. Okay, Kamalashila and his master, who first brought the Buddhism in Tibet, Khenchen Bodhisattva. Now I'm not remembering his name in Sanskrit. So their view, okay. Stephen, you remember? Khenchen Bodhisattva, the one who brought the
Padmasambhava?
No, not Padmasambhava. There is a master, he's a monk.
Shantarakshita.
Shantarakshita, thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I looked it up at Sherab, I didn't know it.
Thank you. So Shantarakshita, okay? Shantarakshita was a great scholar and master in Nalanda at that time. So at that time, the king invited him. And Kamalashila is his disciple. And Shantarakshita is told to the king in the futures, if there any dispute about what is correct view or not, if there's any dispute, then you can invite Kamalashila. He can clarify. So that is when Hashang came, and then he started to present different view, and then there was some confusions, and then didn't know who to follow, and then they invited Kamalashila, and then Kamalashila supposedly defeated him in his view, and so that is so. But Kamalashila, Shantarakshita's view is not Prasangika views. Their view is Sotandrika view, but still there are many things with a similarity. There are some subtle differences, but at the same time, there are a lot of similarity. So that is where Lama Tsongkhapa is making the point here, where he finds similarity, then he brings those together. When there is a difference, then he follows the Prasanga point of view, Adisha's view, okay? So I think that is what it means here, why he is trying to make those about that, which appear to be similar, are amplified here. That is what it means, he's implying that where there are similarity among them, And then, so in order to maintain the special insight in that manner, you should know how to observe 6 preparatory practices that we already discussed at the very beginning of the lamrim. said, first is, setting up the altars, your meditations room. Second is making the nice offerings and nice and beautiful offerings. Third is sitting on the metal cushions in the right posture and then generating the refuge. And then fourth is, visualizing the merit field. And the fifth is having visualized the merit field, then we engage into the practice of seven preliminary practices in order to purify and accumulate merit. And that is the fifth one. And the sixth is, after you're doing that, then you try to ask for the blessings, inspirations, whatever different verses that you might use. So those are the six preparatory practices that have already been explained, and how to act during the actual meditations, So then how to act, you already explained, just went through that, using the reasoning and logics, using the reasoning and logic to analyze and examine. And once you come to that kind of ascertainment, understanding, then you try to remain in that meditation without analysis, placing meditations. So that is what you try when actually you meditate. That is the actual meditations, actual meditation sessions during. Afterwards, then at the end, you try to do dedications. Afterwards, then you try to dedicate from whatever meditations. Here, the meditation emptiness, shamatha, then you try to dedicate. And in between sessions, then you try to study more on that particular subject. If you are meditating on here, meditating on special insight, emptiness, then you try to read commentaries or instructions and teaching on emptiness, and try to remind yourself by seeing everything that you see, hear, smell, experience as a non-intended existence, like illusions. And through that, during the post-meditation, you try to do something that is connected with the actual meditations, that can support the actual meditations. So the actual meditation supporting the post-meditation supporting the actual meditation. So you try to engage in that, something that is related and that help the actual meditation during the post-meditation sessions. And in particular, you should know about the method for maintaining it free from laxity and excitement. So not only we need to, when you are meditating, not only we need to be free from laxity and distractions, only when you are meditating on shamatha, but we also need to keep that free, or also when you are trying to meditate on emptiness or special insight. And so that is important, so that your meditation become more powerful in that. Yeah, I think maybe we could finish this one. And then the measure of having, how do we know we have accomplished special insight? The measure of having accomplished special insight through meditations. Sometimes we want to know, isn't it? We want to know. Again, if you don't study, then again you don't know. You wouldn't know whether you have. Even when you are not actualized it, we think maybe we might have actualized it. And then, so how do we know that? So then here, first we do the analysis, especially insight, emptiness, we do the analysis. So here, as long as you analyze with the wisdom of individual analysis, and the plan C explained above, plan C that is explained about the bodily plan C and mental plan C that is explained when Lama Tsongkhapa explained about karma abiding, so that is where, plan C explained above mean that already explained during the, when he explained karma abiding. As long as that kind of plan C does not arise in your meditation, so then that is a similitude of special insight, but that is not actual special insight. Okay. When you don't have that plan C, then even though you do that kind of analytical meditations, through that analytical meditation, even you have the understanding, a realization on that, until you have that plenty, it's not the actual special insight. It's only similitude of that. But when the plenty arises through that meditations on special insight, by that kind of analysis, then it is fully qualified special insight. Then that becomes the actual qualified special insight, and what is the nature of plenty? What is the entity of plenty? And the way it arises, how does it arise, are explained above, again, during the karma abiding, first there's a, physical plenties, and then mental plenty, and then physical plenties, and through the physical plenties, then the wind energies pervade in all of them, and then through that, then there is a blissfulness that come through that plenties, bodily blissfulness and mental blissfulness, so then when you have that blissfulness, then that is when you achieve the shamatha, and same here too, when you have that kind of same way you actually plenty and the blissfulness that come through that plenties, when you have that, as explained in the early. But it comes through, deep placement meditation without analysis. Here, that plenty come through deep meditation, analytical meditations. So that is the difference. Do you get it? Even though, so Lama Tsongkhapa will come a little bit later on that. Plenty here, this time when you have special insight, the arising of the plenty and the blissfulness from that plenty is coming by that kind of wisdom that is analyzing. Okay, so the source of plenty is different. So that is why here's the next one, where Lama Tsongkhapa and the B, the mere plenty of shamatha is not enough to develop the special insight. So here, in order to, we already explained, in order to meditate on special insight, first you need to develop shamatha, okay? So because you have already developed shamatha, you already have plenty, you already have blissfulness from the shamatha. So that is not enough. So therefore here, since shamatha already accomplished has not deteriorated, because you still have shamatha, strong shamatha, and because through that shamatha you have induced plenty, so you have bliss, plenty, and blissfulness from that plenty already. You already have that, even before you actually engage in the special insight meditation. You already have plenty and blissfulness of that. Okay. The measure for having accomplished special insight is not mere presence of the plenty and the blissfulness, because you already have that through the shamatha. So then what is that we need to develop special plenty and blissfulness here in order to have the actual qualified special insight? So therefore, well then, what is it? When the power of analytical meditation itself, by using reason and logic, is able to induce plenty by its own power, not by the shamatha, by its own power of that analysis, that meditations, then it has become special insight. Are we clear on that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same for the both special insight, observing the variety or conventional phenomena, as well as observing the emptiness. So in both, in terms of cultivating the plenty and blissfulness plenty, is the same. And that one is, again, if you read it there in those sutra, unraveling the intended meaning is clearly mentioned there, as well as instruction and perfection of wisdom. Again, you can read there, is also clearly mentions, as long as the plenty and blissfulness not arise, then it's still similitude, special insight, and it is not actual special insight. But when you induce that kind of meditation, analytical meditation by itself, by the power of the analytical meditation itself, when it when it gives rise to the plenty and blissfulness, and then that is when you achieve the actual shamatha. So I don't have to read that. It's very clearly in both of those sutras, you know. So now, you know, the D, how firm concentration induced when the plenty is induced by the analysis. Normally, when we do analysis, it is an obstacle for the shamatha to develop shamatha concentrations, you know, because when you are trying to develop the shamatha or concentration, you are trying to focus on one particular object. But when you analyze too much, your mind get, you know, everywhere. And so you cannot focus on one object. So it becomes an obstacle to the concentration, shamatha. But here, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, once you have demolished shamatha, and on the basis of that shamatha, if you do the analytical meditations, then that analytical meditation does not become obstacle for that concentration, but actually it induces even stronger concentrations. So therefore, special insight or that kind of meditations, once you have developed shamatha, doesn't become obstacles to the concentration, but instead it helps the concentrations. It induces even more stronger concentration than actually the concentration that has been developed by the shamatha. So that is where it is. When it is able to induce plenty by its own power, that is the wisdom analyzing, you know, by its own power means not by the power of shamatha, but the power of the wisdom analyzing, you know, by the power of analyzing, the wisdom analyzing, by its power means. It's also, not only it is able to analyze the objects, but it is also able to induce single-pointedness of mind that analyzes, induce even more stronger, powerful single-pointed concentrations. Therefore, inducing shamatha like this through the power of analytical meditation that individually analyzes excellent quality of having accomplished shamatha before. And so what it means is, if we have not developed shamatha before, if you do analysis, it will not develop concentration. It will be obstacle for concentrations. Do you get it? But once you have developed shamatha and you use that shamatha to analyze, then that induce even more stronger, powerful single-pointed concentrations. Instead of being it as obstacles, but actually it induces even more powerful single-pointed concentrations. And therefore, so it also here it points the importance of cultivating shamatha before that. If you can develop shamatha even before that, then later, even you do all kinds of different analysis, it doesn't become obstacle for your single-point concentration, but instead it only helps and induce even more stronger single-point concentrations. But if we have not developed shamatha before, and when you do analysis, then it will be obstacle to develop single-point concentrations. So that is the point. Yeah. And so then, you know, clearing some of the misconceptions, you know. Through analytical meditation practice of someone well accomplished shamatha does become more excellent. So therefore, that kind of analysis does not disturb the shamatha, but instead it makes shamatha even more powerful, even more stronger. Because there is a misconception. If you do analysis, then it will disturb your shamatha, your single-pointed concentrations. Do you get it? There is misconceptions. If you use analysis, then it will create obstacles for your single-pointed concentration or shamatha. But here, Lama, that is misconception, misunderstanding. You know, actually, it is the opposite. It is the opposite. Once you have accomplished shamatha, on the basis of that, if you use the analysis, it makes your shamatha even more excellent, even more powerful, you know, more greater. That is why you should not hold that if someone, you practice analog meditation of individual, stability factor of your meditation will lessen. So you shouldn't have that kind of misunderstanding and hold that misunderstanding. So yeah, we'll stop here. So I think, yeah, we have one more week and I think we should be finished, I think, because we don't have much now. Yeah. Okay, so we do the dedications. Due to the merit of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling Jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in the world, to the incomparable kind Tensei Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Tuzu Changshin Jamgan Jawe, Tenzin Jongpe Wepunso Toboz, Chosung Gue Lemon Tudu, Ba Da Sodu Jegundu Shaften. Benevolent One, to you whose kindness exists that of a conqueror for all those wanderers of far off places, especially the West, mindful of your loving concern for us, intentionally descending again in the family of far distant land, we make this request, O Lama, please live long. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Geshe.
Good night, and thank you, Bob, for leading for the discussions, and I hope you have a good discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.